This video is part of an 11-part series that'll be going up on my channel for the next month and a bit, during which I'm going to lay out the top 10 players at every position, culminating in my second top 100 NPB players video. If you're here from day one, welcome, and if you're joining me further down the line, the playlist for these videos will be in the description. Feel free to skip this bit if you've already seen one of these videos, because this part will be the same for every video. These players will be ranked using a similar system to the one I used in my first top 100 video like 2 years ago. First, you take a player's average wins above replacement per season, then multiply that by their 7-year peak WAR to give you a points score. A player will have had to play at least 5 years in NPB to qualify for this list, unless they are a DH, in which case it's 4. Why so low? Well, I wanted to include both foreign players and players that are currently playing in NPB. Unlike last time, however, I will not be penalizing domestic players who barely played in their first couple seasons in NPB, as it isn't really a player's fault if they were called up before they were ready. However, seasons at an end of a player's career in which they did not play much but still tried to hold on will count against their score. Why am I ranking them like this? Well, I dislike subjective rankings and wanted a way of making an objective ranking without just ranking players by wins above replacement, which anyone can do if they know where to look. Speaking of, all the data from 1936 to 2022 comes courtesy of NPBstats.com, and anything from 2023 and 2024 comes from Deltagraphs. Both sites use the Fangraphs WAR model. With that formality out of the way, let's jump into it. The most electrifying position in the infield, shortstops are usually the best defensive player on their team, regardless of the league, team, or era. For them, great defense isn't just a bonus, it is an expectation. Alongside catcher, this is probably the only position in which a player can get away with being a below-average bat. There are some cases in which a shortstop has a historically awful offensive season, but still puts up positive value thanks to just how good their defense is. While we won't be talking about those shortstops today, the ones we will be talking about are the cream of the crop, with most of them being some of the best defenders of all time. These are the top 10 shortstops in NPB history. Born Masaaki Hirai, Saburo Hirai was one of the first stars to come out of Tokushima Prefecture. Born in the capital, Hirai would star for Tokushima Commercial as they made 2 summer Koshien appearances in 1939 and 1940. Hirai would avoid the war by attending Meiji University, but his career would still be interrupted when the government shut down the Tokyo Big Six League. So Hirai would return home and play semi-pro ball, where he again excelled. When he took the all-Tokushima team to the intercity baseball tournament in 1946 and 1947, the team was so popular and so good that there was a movement to turn the team professional. Of course, that didn't happen, and the team was picked off piecemeal by JPBL clubs, with Hirai joining the Hankyu Braves. Hirai quickly established himself as one of the best all-round shortstops in the JPBL, combining a solid bat with excellent fielding. But when he heard that the Braves were going to be joining the upstart Pacific League, he bailed to join the expansion Nishi Nippon Pirates. He would become one of the best players in the Pirates, but the team would soon contract into the Nishitetsu Lions. Still not wanting to play in the Pacific League, Hirai jumped ship to join the Yomiuri Giants, and immediately became the cornerstone of NPB's first dynasty. Again, with his elite defense and solid bat, he would help the Giants win 4 Japan Series titles in 5 years. But as he entered his early 30s, Hirai would be eclipsed by another young shortstop, and would retire after the 1957 season. Born in Amagasaki, Hyogo, Takahiro Ikeyama put himself into the national conversation when he nearly single-handedly took his public high school through the gauntlet that is the Hyogo tournament into Summer Koshien, and even helping them make a run to the round of 16. This got him taken in the second round of the 1983 NPB draft by the Swallows, the Buffaloes, and the Giants, with the Swallows winning the runoff lottery. However, Ikeyama took a while to get going. Despite getting some playing time as a teenager thanks to teammate injuries and his great defense, Ikeyama could never seem to get his sea legs under him offensively. Then 1988 rolled around. He would become just the second shortstop in all of baseball after Ernie Banks to hit 30 homers in 5 consecutive seasons. Only A-Rod and Francisco Lindor have since joined that club. Ikeyama would be the face of a Swallows team that went on to dominate the 1990s, breaking up the Seibu Lions dynasty in 1993 and winning 2 more championships in 1995 and 1997. During that time, Ikeyama was also one of the best defensive shortstops in NPB. However, he only got 1 Gold Glove for his efforts. Still, Ikeyama's contributions were felt both on and off the field, as it was no coincidence that the even years of 1994 and 1996 were marked by injuries to Ikeyama and the Swallows falling out of contention. Eventually, the injuries would start to stick, and Ikeyama was relegated to being a pinch hitter as the new millennium dawned, though he did hold on for his 300th homer and 4th Japan Series championship in 2001. But his career was pretty much over, and he would retire after the 2002 season. Despite Ikeyama languishing on the Hall of Fame ballot, his legacy as one of the best NPBers in the 1990s and as the face of a dynasty will endure. Though he's far better known for his time after his playing career, where he was a dictatorial but successful manager, Tatsuro Hirooka was actually one of the greatest shortstops of his era. Born and raised in Kure, Hiroshima, his father was the chief engineer of the IJN light cruiser Kinu. Japanese naval training focused a lot on flexibility and gymnastics, so the elder Hirooka got his children into gymnastics as a result. This translated well into baseball, and the younger Hirooka would be the face of Mitsuta High School, but he got no interest from the pro ranks, so he went to Waseda University. There, his talent for baseball made every NPB team shoot up and take notice. Hirooka used his excellent reaction time and athletic ability to become a vacuum cleaner at shortstop. His limber frame from years of gymnastics gave him the ability to snag balls other shortstops thought impossible, and gave him the arm to gun down runners at will. Though his hometown Hiroshima Carp charged hard for him, the Giants would end up signing him instead. Taking over from the aforementioned Saburo Hirai as a rookie in 1954, Hirooka would have one of the greatest offensive seasons by a shortstop ever, finishing with 15 homers and a 170 WRC+. While his hitting wound down significantly after that, his above-average bat and elite glove were still key to the Giants winning 5 consecutive pennants in the late 50s. I mean, they only got one Japan Series out of the deal, but still. As the 60s dawned and the balls got livelier, Hirooka's hitting dropped significantly. Still, his elite defense contributed to 3 more Japan Series victories in 1961, 63, and 65. But the upstart Yukinobu Kuroe would take his place, and Hirooka would embark on a long and successful coaching career. He'd be elected to the Japanese Baseball Hall of Fame in 1992. Perhaps the greatest shortstop of the 1970s, Taira Fujita was a highly touted prospect when the Hanshin Tigers took him in the second round of the infamous 1965 draft. Fujita, who was born and raised in Wakayama and had grown up idolizing the Tigers, was initially upset when in his first days at spring training, Tigers coaching staff didn't take him seriously. He was even further enraged when he noticed opposing outfielders always played in when he was up to bat. So in the offseason, he picked up hammer throw and never looked back. Fujita, like Hirooka before him, was an amazing offensive and defensive shortstop, but unlike Hirooka, he was actually able to hold on to it longer. However, his offensive reputation meant he never got any recognition for his defense. Still, he was a key piece on a Hanshin Tigers team that is often regarded as the best to never win a pennant, which was incredibly frustrating for Fujita, especially because they fell just short during his best season in 1973, where he put up 7.1 WAR. In 1978, injuries would force Fujita off shortstop, and he would spend the rest of his career primarily as a first baseman. He would bounce back in 1981, winning a batting title and comeback player of the year, but with Randy Bass joining the Tigers in 1983, his days were numbered. Fujita initially wanted to move to second base, but manager Tomoo Ando wouldn't allow it. Frustrated by this, and 2 seasons of mediocre play and less playing time, Fujita retired after the 1984 season. The year before, the Tigers finally won a Japan Series. Despite being one of the premier players of his era, Fujita still isn't in the Japanese Baseball Hall of Fame. Offense wins games. Defense wins championships. Such was the mantra of the Chunichi Dragons in the greatest era in franchise history. And anchoring that team was their shortstop, Hirokazu Ibata. Born and raised in Kawasaki, Ibata entered the national conversation when he helped take Hirokoshi High School to 1993 Summer Koshien. While it didn't get him drafted, it did get him a spot at the powerhouse Asia University. Picked by the Chunichi Dragons in the 5th round in 1997, not much was expected of Ibata when he joined. He was seen as surplus goods in the middle infield thanks to young shortstop Kosuke Fukudome and Korean second baseman Jungbom Lee. But Ibata soon impressed as a defensive wizard on a team that lacked defense, something that had cost them dearly in the 1999 Japan Series. With Fukudome moving to center field in 2001, Ibata quickly became the everyday shortstop. While he still couldn't hit all that well, it was clear to everyone that he was the best defensive shortstop the league had seen in a long time. And when that bat finally came around in 2004, Ibata's profile only grew. During Chunichi's run of 3 Japan Series appearances in 4 years, Ibata was the club's defensive anchor. But after that came problems, the biggest being an eye injury that limited his hitting for the next few years. Although he did put up the best season of his career in 2009 and another elite year in 2012, which got him a roster spot for the 2013 World Baseball Classic. In 2014, he would declare free agency and sign with the Giants, a move that puzzled pretty much everybody because he was seen as excess goods on a team that didn't really need him, and his playing time reflected that. After 2 years of struggling along, he would retire after the 2015 season. Currently on the Hall of Fame ballot, Ibata is also the manager of the Japanese national team at the time of writing this. Everyone agrees on the first two Mr. Tigers, Fumiya Fujimura and Minoru Murayama. Third is arguable, as some say Koichi Tabuchi doesn't deserve it because he didn't spend his entire career as a Tiger, to which I say that wasn't his fault, he was traded. But after the fourth Mr. Tigers, Masayuki Kakefu, retired in 1988, it would be 16 years before another one showed up. His name is Takashi Toritani. Born in the Tokyo suburb of Higashimarayama, knee troubles caused by an adolescent growth spurt hampered him growing up. But once he finally got going, Toritani burst onto the scene thanks to taking Seipo Gakuen High School on a Cinderella run to 1999 Summer Koshien. After going undrafted, he would attend Waseda University and dominate the Big Six, making him impossible to ignore. So the Hanshin Tigers used their free acquisition spot to take him in the 2003 draft. By 2005, Toritani was already shaping up to be the face of the franchise, as his elite defense made him a cornerstone on that pennant-winning team. Just don't ask how that Japan series went. Once his bat came around, Toritani was nigh on unstoppable, putting up at least 6 WAR 5 years in a row, and 5 WAR 7 years in a row. Unlike the other great offensive shortstops, his defense was recognized too, as he won 5 Gold Gloves in his career. However, in 2018, age would finally catch up with him, and in 2020 he joined the Chiba Lotte Marines, essentially acting as a player coach in Tadahito Iguchi's regime, retiring in 2021. While Toritani isn't on the ballot just yet, he should be a shoo-in Hall of Famer when the time does come. In 1953, a 19-year-old kid from Kyoto dropped out of Ritsumeikan University to join the Osaka Tigers. His name was Yoshio Yoshida, and the Tigers would never be the same again. Initially dismissed by his opponents because of his tiny frame, Yoshida quickly dazzled Tigers fans with his acrobatic play and excellent reflexes, which more than made up for his vertical deficiencies. He was, quite simply, the greatest defensive shortstop of all time. Well, besides Kiyoshi Yamada, but unlike Yamada, Yoshida could also hit. Not only was he an above-average hitter more often than not, but he also had 2 140 WRC plus seasons in the mid-1950s, including 1956, which turned into his best season ever and the 4th best in Hanshin Tigers history. During that time, the press nicknamed him Ushiwaka Maru, or the Young Bull, after the legendary Japanese medieval general Minamoto no Yoshitsune, famed for his defensive tactics. But that isn't to say Yoshida was a one-year wonder. When the Tigers won their first CL pennant in 1962, Yoshida was still one of the premier players, and in 1964, he'd have an MVP caliber season. But as he entered his mid-30s, he finally began to slow down. His defense wasn't the problem, as you might expect, as he was still one of the best defenders in the league. It was his offense, and the aforementioned Taira Fujita was waiting in the wings. So it was time to pass the torch. Yoshida would retire after the 1969 season. Yoshida would later lead the Tigers to their first Japan Series title as a manager in 1985, and would help revive the French national baseball team, gaining him the nickname Monsieur. Yoshida was inducted into the Japanese Baseball Hall of Fame in 1992. While it may have taken him a little while to get going, at the turn of the millennium, there was no better shortstop in NPB than Kazuo Little Godzilla Matsui. Hailing from Osaka and drafted out of the infamous PL Gakuen High School in 1994, Kazuo Matsui joined a Lions team that had just lost back-to-back Japan Series finals for the first time in their history. The team was looking to retool, and thus Matsui was allowed to take a step back while the Lions let Ichiro's Oryx Blue Wave run away in front of the PL. But by the time the Lions were back, Matsui was one of the faces of the franchise. Not only was he a 5-tool player as he stole 20 bases in 8 consecutive seasons while hitting well and playing elite defense, but Matsui was also a natural-born leader, taking charge of the Lions as they rose back to prominence in 1997. While the Lions would lose all 3 Japan Series finals Matsui led them to, he more than made his mark, especially in 2002 when he put up a 333 and 11.2 WAR. This obviously got him noticed by MLB, and Matsui would exercise an international free agent rights after 2003 and sign with the New York Mets. That also made him the first Japanese infielder to sign in MLB. His MLB career is outside the purview of this video, but I will say that by the time he got back, his value had diminished significantly. Still, he would be signed by the Tohoku Rakuten Golden Eagles and would capture them through the fallout of the tsunami and help them win the 2013 Japan Series. Matsui would rejoin the Lions in 2018 in order to retire with them at the end of the year. Currently on the Hall of Fame ballot, he should get in there by the time things are said and done. When people talk about the greatest shortstops in the modern era of baseball and exclude Hayato Sakamoto, they are doing themselves a disservice. The former Giants captain has long established himself as one of the greatest players in his team's illustrious history. Drafted in the first round of the high school draft in 2006 out of Kosei Gakuen High School in Aomori, far away from his hometown of Itami, Hyogo, Hayato Sakamoto joined a Giants team that was in a transition phase. The strategy of buy every free agent wasn't quite working out, and they needed a fresh young face to take the team to new heights, and that's exactly what Sakamoto gave them. By his age 21 season in 2009, he was already the face of the franchise, winning a best 9 as he helped the Giants win their first title since 2002. By 2012, he had an MVP caliber season as the Giants won yet another title, and was clear to everyone that the Giants of the 2010s would be defined by him and him alone. Throughout the decade, Sakamoto was consistently excellent, but there was one gripe about him: he didn't really hit for power. Well, he proved that was by choice when he cranked 40 homers in 2019, finally netting him the MVP he'd long deserved. While Sakamoto has been up and down in recent years, there is a decent chance he could become the first NPB player to reach 100 WAR since Koji Yamamoto all the way back in the 1980s, and he has an outside shot of becoming just the second player to join the 3,000 hit club solely in NPB. He already sits 8th on the career WAR leaderboard and should have a few more years left in him. Even though that won't be at shortstop as he's moved to third base, he's not quite done just yet. The greatest shortstop in NPB history is a hotly debated topic, and I see how it can be. But there's one guy who is so utterly dominant on both sides of the ball that it kinda defies explanation. His name was Yasumitsu Toyota. Joining the Nishitetsu Lions as an 18-year-old out of Mito Commercial High School in Ibaraki, Toyota hit 27 homers, had a 159 WRC+, and put up 6 WAR as a rookie. 3 years later, he became one of only 3 position players in NPB history to put up a 12 WAR campaign, leading the Lions to their first Japan Series title, and in the process suffering quite possibly the biggest MVP snub in NPB history. Oh, and the NL on his cap? Yeah, he's the one who designed it. For his first 12 years in NPB, he never put up a single season WAR below 5.3. That is an all-star caliber season, every year, for 12 years, just consistently excellent all throughout. However, he was always in the shadow of Futoshi Nakanishi. Their falling out in his subsequent trade to the Kokutetsu Swallows was what was seen as the beginning of the end for Nishitetsu, as despite the Lions using the cash to hire some great foreign players, 1963 would be their last pennant for 19 years. As for Toyota, he would only play 268 games after his 30th birthday, as injuries decimated the back half of his career, which means he could have been even better, which is saying something because, just look at his stat line. In 2006, he would finally get the honor he deserved and would be elected to the Japanese Baseball Hall of Fame. It's a travesty that it took that long, but still, he's there. That's what matters. He is the greatest shortstop in NPB history.